Next up, we have Maya Perez. She is a screenwriter and a fiction writer. Her short stories have appeared in the Master's Review and Electric Literature, and she's co-editor of the books On Story, Screenwriters and Their Craft, and the upcoming On Story, Screenwriters and Filmmakers on Their Iconic Films, both from the University of Texas Press. Maya is also a producer for the Emmy Award-winning television series On Story, presented by the Austin Film Festival, now in its 6th season on PBS. She's a graduate of Vassar College and the Michener Center for Writers. Let's welcome her up here.
Thank you for inviting me, Olga. And thank you, Malvern and Vassar Review for hosting, and Corey, Susan, and Becca. And thank you guys all for being here and listening. So I've been working on a novel, and I'm going to read a chapter. And I thought I would start with the first one. London, 2016. The dead man walking sways with the train, loses his balance and clutches the metal railing. The bar, smoother and cooler to his hand than ever before, gives a light ting as his wedding band connects. The recorded announcements of approaching stations sound somehow kinder. And the people, he swears he can hear the blood pumping through their veins as it travels to their outermost leaves. He studies the other passengers, not many, as it's a good hour after the last swell of commuters headed home. 2 teenage girls with oversized headphones, like in the old rap videos he used to watch, sit across from each other. They nod their heads and hold up 4 fingers, then 3, then 2, then 1. The girl with the blue and green streaks in her hair slaps her own face, and the other girl laughs. He watches as they count off again, this time noticing the iPods they hold. He smiles, realizing they are trying to sync the start of the song. The one with the skull cap notices him watching and gives him the finger, staring at him, her face blank. Green Streaks turns to look at him and laughs. He lifts his hands in apology and looks away, out the window to the dark walls rushing by. He is grateful for all opportunities to apologize. Dead man walking, he thinks again, oddly comforted by the name he's given himself after the Sean Penn movie about a man on death row. Dead man walking woke his wife this morning to make love while it was still dark. Memorized Patricia's warm scent of sweat, mingled with dark and lovely soft sheen and Vaseline lotion. He made sure she'd climaxed, then whispered to her to go back to sleep, and she had. Dead man walking held his youngest child on his lap at the kitchen table. At 10, Isaiah is too big for such things, but he was sleepy and allowed it. The man had prepared the children's lunches while they ate the feast he had prepared for them of sausages, scrambled eggs, and pancakes, and long strips that could be dunked in syrup. French pancakes, his children called them the first time he made them, waving off their mother's insistence that French pancakes had their own name. Dead man walking hugged his 3 children close, one at a time, then all together, their clustering wide and sturdy, like the trunk of a giant baobab tree, not bothering to hold back his tears. They were used to such displays of emotion from him and smiled to each other, embarrassed. Perhaps his tears and hugs and proclamations of pride and love seemed more effusive, but their thoughts were already gone from the house, busy with friends and schoolwork and netball. Dead man walking stood on the sidewalk outside the building, watching his children leave him. Isaiah trip-tropping on the balls of his feet, despite years of physical therapy. The twins, Achin and Dembe, their heads tilted toward each other, hands gesturing wildly as they talked. The girls were 16, but had so far exhibited none of the sullenness and mood swings of adolescence that had overtaken his eldest daughter in her last 2 years at home. Behavior so erratic and sometimes violent that Patricia would close herself in the bathroom to cry helpless, angry tears. Their eldest had left for university and seemingly overnight transformed into an enjoyable young woman who made them laugh with her impressions of her professors and fellow students, and to phone them often, to have her mother proofread her papers, and if she were coming for the weekend, make requests for posho and bean soup, or steak and chips and relish. But like the burn of hot cooking oil, Patricia had quickly forgotten the turbulence that had rattled their family, and now she worried that the twins were too sweet. Were they immature? And she and Edward hovered so close that they couldn't go to their full heights. They're fine, he would tell her. They're good girls, and you're just looking for something to worry about because your children are getting older. Dead Man Walking washed his family's dishes for the last time and brought Patricia a cup of tea that she ignored as she rushed for the shower, annoyed with him for having turned the alarm off. Edward, what were you thinking? Dead Man Walking kissed his wife goodbye and felt guilty for lying that the reason he was still at home was because he had a dentist appointment at past. He pushed the laundry cart down to the laundrette. As the machines whirred and thumped, he wrote letters to Patricia and each of his children explaining what he had done. The details were left out of the letters to the children. He would leave that decision to his wife, but his anguish at leaving them, his desire to do right, regardless of the consequences, his boundless pride, that he included in each. Dead Men Walking folded and put away his family's clothes at home, lay in each of their beds, like Goldilocks, he thought. Face down on their pillows, he inhaled their scents. He removed a few hairs from each brush, rolled them in a ball, and put them in his shirt pocket. He scrubbed the sinks, the bath, and toilets, swept and mopped the floors, polished the mirrors and windows with vinegar and newspaper. Dead Man Walking walked to HSBC to have the teller assure him that his wife had access to all of his accounts, meager as they were, and print balances for each. Dead Man Walking shopped at Tesco, purchasing the groceries for the week, and his family's favorites, including a Cadbury flake cake, what Patricia called her Achilles heel as she struggled to lose the 9 kilos that had accumulated from 3 pregnancies and menopause. Dead Man Walking showered and shaved and put on his best suit, the one he had worn to his wedding, to each of the 4 children's christenings, to his mother-in-law's funeral. The jacket wouldn't close over his chest, so he left it open. He transferred the ball of his family's hair to his clean shirt pocket, ran his hands over the worn fabric of the living room sofa across the kitchen counter, rough with seared bubbles and knife cuts, along the pale blue walls of the short hallway that held decades of family photos. Dead Men Walking walked to the front door to their flat for the last time, took the lift down for the last time, walked out of the building for the last time. Now late afternoon, the children wouldn't be home for another half hour, but he didn't want to risk running into them. He walked from Brixton to Battersea, breathing deeply the spring air of London and savoring the stretch of his legs and the sidewalk under his feet, hard and definite. He'd been surprised by the 6 o'clock bell and not wanting to catch Omer Medini and his family at dinner, and decided it better to take the tube than walk the rest of the way. The teenage girls have finally synced their start times and now sing along to the silent music. Their voices are loud and off-key, more for the goal of disturbing the passengers in the car and entertaining each other than for singing along. An old woman glares at them, and when her eyes light on his, he smiles graciously. Let the girls have their silliness. She scowls at him and turns back to her book. As the train pulls into the station, the Dead Man Walking mentally says goodbye to the old woman, to the men in business suits, to the West Indian woman and her white toddler, and to the teenage girls. Above ground, though he memorized the address and route months before, he studies the directions he wrote down and follows them to the Tony neighborhood, much quieter and more well-kept than his own. By now, the smell of fried fish and curried goat and cigarette smoke and antiseptic cleaner would be mingling in the hallway of his building. Music from various radios would be competing with each other, and the wailing of babies, shouts and calls from tenants, the occasional revving engine. Here, there are few signs of life within the stately townhomes. No graffiti marks the walls or lampposts, no toys left out on the steps. Everything looks fresh, the shiny, undented cars, the white brick and gray trim, even the bushes and small patches of grass look newly delivered from a catalog. Dead Man Walking stops in front of 36 Queensgate, closes his eyes briefly, and then walks up the steps. If someone were watching him, he might even appear eager. He can't give himself time to think and reconsider. He lifts the polished brass knocker and brings it down hard. He doesn't want to have to knock a second time, doesn't know if he would be able to. A few moments later, the door swings open, and he is greeted by an elderly Sudanese woman, about age 60 or so. Likely his age, he realizes, but she seems older for her sternness. "Hello, may I help you?" Her accent says she has lived in the UK for many years, though the deep roll of marbles is still audible. "Good evening. I'm here to speak with Mr. Medini." "He's expecting you?" Her brow creases. "No, madam, he's not. But if you would tell him please tell him it's important. It's a personal matter that I am certain he will want to hear what I have to say. My name is Edward Abote, and I bring information about his daughter." The woman studies him. "Please wait here," she finally says, and closes the door. A black town car pulls up outside the house. Edward looks up and down the street. He takes deep breaths, trying to slow his racing heart. The door opens again, and the woman stands to the side, ushering him in. "Mr. Medini is still dressing and must leave shortly, but he said for you to come in." Edward follows her up the stairs and down the hall of the quiet house. Wooden crates and cardboard boxes in various states of packing sit on the floor of each room they pass. He doesn't realize how much he was dreading and anxious to see family pictures until he notices they have been removed from the walls and packed away, only the outlines of the frames remaining. There is no smell of cooking food, no indication of other people present, and Edward wonders if God has gifted him with the compassion of an empty house. Or is it a gift to Omer? Perhaps both. What's his option call it? A twofer? Edward follows the woman into the sitting area of a bedroom suite and sits in the chair she points him to. Please excuse me, a deep voice calls from the other room, but my retirement party is tonight and I've been packing all day. My car should be here any minute. I'm flying to Khartoum in the morning and this was the only time. His voice disappears into what must be a closet or bathroom. Edward is uncertain whether to speak or not. He doesn't want to introduce himself twice, so he waits. Suddenly, Omer is standing in front of him. He's tall, almost 2 meters, with tufts of wiry white hair in a semicircle around his bald pate. In his early 80s, he's trim, though his belly touched the buttons on his shirt. Omer reaches his hand out to Edward. Edward hesitates only a moment before taking it, inwardly cringing at the contact. Omer's grip is strong, but gentle, nothing to prove. Omer Medni, did Fatima offer you anything to drink? Edward shakes his head. No, but I don't need any. Fatima, would you please bring our guest some tea? Really, it's all right. Maybe just some water. And to bring him a glass of water as well. Omer finishes buttoning his shirt and tucks it into his slacks. Fatima says, you know Amal? At Edward's confused look. My daughter? Before Edward can answer, Fatima walks in carrying a tray with the drinks. She bangs it down on the side table, the tea spilling over the side. Without acknowledging Edward, she addresses Omer. The car is here. You should go now. Just ask him to wait. Fatima leaves the room and Omer nods at the spilt tea. She knows you are from Uganda. Anyone who lived in Africa in the 70s, well, I'm sure you understand, he offers by way of explanation. Of course. In fact, Mr. Medni, that is why I'm here. Omer stills and Edward feels the air pull out of the room. He reaches his hand up to his pocket and feels the delicate mound within. His tongue sits heavy, and he suddenly worries that he won't be able to speak. Edward swallows and forces himself to look up, to meet Omer's eyes. I'm here about your other daughter, about Zahia. I know what happened to her. I was there. Thank you.